host of Port. To my right is Michael Marshall, co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation, constitutional scholar, and FCC compliant doctorate holder, certified to do things that I don't understand. And of course, is Michael Vasquez, cheerleader for the Dallas Cowboys and the only independent journalist in New York, the Dragon of the Bronx. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Jan Rains, Petey, joining us from the Sound. We're going to have a couple of guests on a little while, hopefully, as they swing in. Somewhat of an eventful
Alexa, turn on off Slick.
Okay.
What I do?
I told Alexa to turn on my light.
Oh.
Okay.
Somewhat of an eventful week. I feel really bad that the kids in the Bronx will never be able, well, the black kids in the Bronx will never be able to access this show because they don't know what a computer is.
They don't
even know what the word computer is.
They don't know what it means. They've never seen a computer.
No.
They have no grasp at all. Now, Vass, you're in the Bronx. How many kids have you seen out there as of late with two cans and a string trying to telecommunicate?
It's good.
Do you know what a computer is, Mike?
Well, to be fair, Vass is not a child.
That's one thing, yeah. But I find it interesting how Governor Hochul, for people who don't know what we're talking about, this week, Tuesday, it was revealed that Governor Hochul was in California on Monday, speaking before a progressive group of donors, or she hopes they will donate to her. And she was speaking about poverty, the need for help for Black kids. And she emphasized that Black kids in the Bronx don't know what the word computer means. This is now 2024. Now, part of that is because she's absolutely ignorant of what anyone does in a city or anywhere in New York State, because she's not around real people. She's in an echo chamber of politicians that all agree with her all the time. So she doesn't know what real people know or don't know. But I find it really interesting because Governor Hochul revealed that the U.S. Department of Education failed, that the Democrat-controlled New York State legislature failed, that the New York State Department of Education also failed, that her policies have failed Black kids, if we take her at her word on face value, that Black kids don't know what a computer is. That means they have failed our education system. They have failed these children. And yet, to this day, an entire week, she has not apologized to parents. She has not apologized to Black children. She hasn't apologized at all. No, she misspoke. This is a prepared speech. And this is a governor, someone who was also in elected office before she became governor. She is a career politician. And she misspoke in a prepared speech. Go ahead.
That has speechwriters.
Yeah. Well, this wasn't part of her prepared speech. To give her fairness, I first thought that this was part of her prepared remarks. It was a little bit off the cuff. But you mean to tell me someone who deals with New York State's education system, our budget, issues affecting this state, she's been in politics for over 20 years. You mean to tell me she doesn't know whether or not Black kids are being taught what a computer is in the education system that she funds, that she okayed, that unions talk to her about on a regular basis? It is insulting at the very least. And many people said it's racist. Kind of, yes, but I think it's very much political. It is, she doesn't care.
Yeah.
She used the Black kids as an emotional tool to try and prompt the people in California to donate to her so that she could provide the solution to a problem that, if you think about it, she is the root cause of.
Well, exactly.
Well, it just shows you a little bit more evidence. I mean, when was the last time that the governorship in New York was out of the control of the Democrats? That was Pataki.
Giuliani.
So
late 90s?
Actually, no, because yes, you're right. That's governor, but the New York State legislature, Democratic controlled for the last 50 years.
Oh yeah, well the legislature, but when you talk about
Oh, and
the
Pataki was no Barry Goldwater. I mean, let's
Exactly.
be clear.
Yeah, there's that too. Yeah.
I mean, I think he makes Mitt Romney look like fucking Ron Paul. So I'm sorry.
So, Frank, why don't you introduce your guests?
Yeah.
coming into this,
Hi.
Hey.
bottom right of the screen is Steve Bozich, good friend of mine from beararms.com, who's been running some pretty unusual events as of late that we want to kind of give everybody a little clue up in. If there's somebody that I know that exemplifies what the words freedom mean, it's probably Steve. Somebody puts his money where his mouth is, and he's got a big mouth. And of course, to the left and below is Charlie Cook from the ever popular show Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Charlie, how are you? Thanks for joining us this evening.
I'm living the dream, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, well, I was just watching the other show. You guys were working with Meet the Pressers. I was watching you guys over there with Matt. Had a nice spirited conversation. Wanted to pick up on some of what you guys were talking about there. Steve, all right, for those who don't
Well, I want to get, since we're on this, I want to get you guys, you're our guests. I want to hear your thoughts because I don't believe either of you are in New York State. Is that right?
No, I'm in North Carolina. However, I was born in Albany.
Okay. And what about you, Charlie?
I'm in Massachusetts, so it's still occupied territory.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you guys heard about this with Hochul.
Yeah,
And
I
the
can't
Bronx kid.
believe this. So the first term that she was in office, I called her the unelected Governor Hochul because she was unelected. When I hear that, I'm a big fan of Adam Carolla, and I'm not sure if you guys know who Adam is, but he has this thing that he says, are these people stupid or are they liars? And this is all it makes me think of. Is she stupid or is she a liar? She has to know that people are working with computers, particularly all kids, let alone black kids. Everybody in school has computers. I've been teaching in schools for 20 years, and every school's got computers. Every single one. They have these little carts that lock up where they put their computers in, and they have power strips in there, and they plug their laptops in there when they're not using them, when they go off for recess or lunch break or at the end of school, they plug these things in. They have a little cart that gets locked up. Every kid in every school has access to a computer. How does she not realize this? And kind of like what you were bringing up there, Michael, is this something? Is this going to be some way for her to say, well, we need more money in education because we have black kids that don't have computers. But then you know what? In outside of Massachusetts, there's a town called Newton, and Newton is one of outside of Boston, excuse me, and Newton is one of the most expensive, one of the wealthiest towns in the state of Massachusetts, and it often comes up in one of the wealthiest and best places to live. And 7 or 8 years ago, they dropped like $350 million on a brand new school building for all the rich white kids. I'm sure they had a boatload of computers there.
You know, it's interesting to me, and maybe you guys disagree, Steve, Charlie, anyone actually. I cannot see what she said and how. And this is why the media dropped this. They have stopped talking about this as of 2 days ago. You're supposed to forget this. But I think this is an incredible indictment of the failure of the Federal Department of Education, New York State, and the policies, the socialist progressive policies we've seen. If we take them at their word, if we assume that she's not just pandering, she's not just using children to advance her political agenda, if we take her at her word, then they have all failed miserably, catastrophically, and they don't even want to talk about that. Am I wrong in reading it that way? I mean, how do you guys see it?
Well, I mean, and if I could just chime in, I guess I could sum it up like this by actually answering, I think it was Charlie's question. The answer to the question, are they lying or are they stupid? The answer is yes.
All the above.
They're lying and they're dumb enough to believe it. I mean, the governor of New York says something stupid. I mean, I think it's more of an indictment of, frankly, the people that put her in office than anything else. You know, I mean, Joe Biden said, poor kids are just as smart as white kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I can go down the list, right, of just dumb things that they've said over the years. I'm not surprised that politicians of any political stripe, but obviously ones that are never held to account, especially, say dumb things. Of course, they are. It's just the nature of the beast. What I'm constantly surprised by is the fact that the same people put them in power over and over and over again. So
there's a lot to that, and I think it has a lot to do with free stuff and fear of being able to speak out against this, because she's a Democrat. The news media is protecting her. We saw Assemblyman, actually New York Speaker Carl Hastie came out and said, no, I understand what she really meant. Don't pay attention to her exact words. She misspoke.
Well, if he actually understood what she really meant, was he kind enough to share with everybody else what it was?
He said, again, this is New York State Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie.
Right.
His words on the day it was revealed, Tuesday. He said, well, she meant to say that there are problems with our education system, and it's affecting Black kids in the Bronx more than others. And we need to have more government regulation. We need to have more government spending on our schools, and that will fix it. Of course, that's what got us here in the first place.
Right. Regardless that the system that's in control now has been in control for anywhere between 25 and 50 years. Completely ignore the 5 to 7 decades of complete failure that we've demonstrated on a daily basis and just give us more control over it. It's not, that statement of hers was revealing in two ways. One, it showed her that she understands that the system fails and that it's her system that fails. And two, she gave a glimpse into the racist views that the Democratic Party has towards minorities in the state or in the country. They just feel that, that the only reason that they're there is because they're a dependable voting bloc, which in the last couple of seasons we've seen that's not necessarily as true as it has been in the past. But it just gives you a glimpse. I mean, she's, it's, what do they say? A drunk man's words are a sober man's thoughts. She let it out of the bag. She let it out of the bag. She spoke her, to use their term, her truth. She spoke her truth. She just didn't realize that there would be a lot of people like us around here that would call her on it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's why they want us all to forget as fast as possible, so they can move on and, don't interrupt. They got to fortify the 2024 election. Don't change your vote. Don't you dare. You have to vote Democrat. So please forget this and keep on voting without thinking about the consequences, as you mentioned, Steve.
Well, you ain't black if you don't vote for Biden.
And yet, look at me in this. I mean, it's not a problem with the camera.
All right. So
I love my suntan, and I don't pay anything for it.
Yeah, I can verify that because we've had lunch in January in the middle of Binghamton, and you have been considerably darker than my Sicilian melanin content. So we're very happy that you don't have to pay for that. Speaking of not paying for things, Steve, I see that you haven't paid for a barber in quite some time.
They shut down the barber shops. So did they open them up again?
What, before COVID or after? Or
After, well, during COVID, they shut them down.
Well, I'm pretty sure.
They said no haircut for you. I said okay.
Oh, all right. Well, I figure with the amount of sheep on your farm, you have a pair of shears somewhere.
Yeah.
You look good. It's a good look on you, brother. It looks good. Somebody in the audience said you remind you of a young Sam Elliott.
Was there ever a young Sam Elliott?
Right. That's what I'm laughing at.
Like he was born 45 years old and gruff.
Right.
Dude had a gray beard in kindergarten.
Right.
All right. So we want to get back to touch on the original subject you guys were talking about on your show before. Steve held kind of an unusual. Steve, all right. I know Steve's been working on something for quite some time, and it has metamorphosized itself through the last couple of years. And you culminated it this past weekend with an event that you had.
I don't know. I mean, culminate almost implies we've reached an end point.
Well, it's not finished. It's still evolving.
Oh, very much so. But yeah, no. So yeah, I mean, I could, as Charlie just painfully learned, I can make this story as long as you want. But the short of it is, I started off doing 80%. Almost. Well, I started Bear Arms. I got my LLC June 1st, 2017. So that's when we kind of came into existence, and we started out just as an 80% dealer. I was buying Palmer 80 kits, in wholesale, selling them retail. I got certified as a Glock armorer, so I was, buying slide kits and parts and barrels and the whole 9 yards and putting them all together and selling them. And we were doing some other stuff as well. I won't go down that rabbit hole. But the short of it is, when COVID hit, we had to radically change the way that we were approaching our strategy towards supporting the privately made firearm market. And we made the transition from 80% to effectively 0%. And the way we did that is we started taking 3D printers, cheap. I don't like to use the word cheap. We'll say economical. Bed slingers off the shelf, right? $200, $250 printers, upgrading them, and designing profiles, splicing profiles. And if you don't know anything about 3D printing, the slicer and the profile for it are a set of instructions that essentially take a three-dimensional model and it turns it into machine instruction for the printer to turn that digital model into an actual physical object. So we're taking these introductory level printers, we're upgrading them, and then we're designing slicer profiles that not only can you take pretty much anything off the internet, run it through our slicer, and then print it, but we can preload our printers with files so that you can simply assemble the printer, load the filament, level the bed, and print your own Glock 17, your own Glock 19, your own AR-15, your own Mac 11, your own Tech 9, your own FGC-9, whatever the case may be. We've got an ever-growing list of firearms that are supported by our printers. And of course, the benefit being that since it's your printer and you're making it for yourself in the privacy of your own home, once you make that frame or receiver for yourself, there's no requirement it be serialized, hence Bear Arms. Or ghost guns, as you will sometimes hear them called. The important takeaway here was that to prove that we had something, that we could take these printers, upgrade them, and then take one file and put it on any one of them and get the same thing over and over and over again, we had to do just that. As a consequence, I ended up with like dozens and dozens of Glock frames that I don't have anything to do with. We only need so many of them. The laws here in North Carolina changed probably about a year ago, and we did away with our universal background checks for handguns. As a consequence of that, we decided that we were going to do the world's first free gun zone. And so we went down to downtown Southern Pines, and we gave away a bunch of free guns.
Nice.
Now, when Steve first told me about this plan months ago, I kept saying to myself, "All right, I'm gonna just keep a little bit of cash on hand, just in case Steve needs to get himself out." Because North Carolina, you think North Carolina is like an ultra conservative, gun friendly zone, and there are sections down here that make like Haight-Ashbury, look like Alphabet City to Bronx. There's it's
now, and I had the same fear. It wasn't quite as profound and as deep as, and I didn't really go into everything that I did when I started this, but in 2018 I launched and received a determination letter for a 501c3 nonprofit that was stood up was created for the purpose of giving build classes on how to turn 80% and 100%, using the tools and equipment under the control and dominion of the 501c3 nonprofit, which, per the statutory definition of engaged in the business of manufacturing, a nonprofit can't fall under that definition, and thus it doesn't require an FFL. To prove that my novel interpretation of the law had merit, I went to the Greensboro Gun Show, and I had a buddy who had bail money and my car keys. He was running the firearms stable selling 80% kits, and I was next door at the nonprofit, and I was set up to do build classes to show people how to actually turn that 80% into a fully functioning firearm. And I did not go to jail that time, and I did not go to jail this time. The big difference between the two was that I did not call the ATF and tell them what I was planning on doing that fateful August weekend in 2018. This time I did call our sheriff's department, and I gave our chief deputy a heads up. He thanked me, and lo and behold, last Friday morning, I actually got a call from the captain of the Southern Pines Police Department, and he informed me that everything I was doing was completely kosher. And the only thing I really had to worry about was if I happened to venture on what would be considered private property and was instructed to leave, failure to do so would be a trespass. And I would be, obviously subject to removal and or arrest, which never happened. So no, we were lucky, and I mean, we were good. And it was fun.
I didn't get a chance to ask you today. Did you get any pushback at all from any of the other people?
Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely. It was a motley crew. I mean, we got a little bit of everything. Probably the best. I mean, I was really happy that there was one guy. We walked up to. We would just kind of walk up to. So the first Friday of every month, they shut down a section of downtown Southern Pines, and they have vendors and live music and all sorts of stuff. So people kind of congregate in small groups, little groups of drunks, if you will. And we walked up to one of them, and this guy was like dead nuts. He knew exactly what was going on, and so that was kind of one end of the spectrum. On the other end, there were a lot of people who were disgusted and dismayed, and it looked like their world was crashing down around them. And frankly, both of those reactions were immensely satisfying to me.
Well, what do they say? It doesn't matter how they spell your name in the press, just as long as it gets there.
Right. Just make sure you get my good side.
So, I got video up. This actually happened in April, but this is the exact reason why we need people like Steve doing what they do. Get this up here and get it started.
Are you refusing to give us the trigger?
I'm not refusing anything. I won't be answering any questions.
So
I won't be answering any questions today.
were you expecting us?
So,
What didn't surprise me when I saw a guy in a plate carrier showing up. So
this guy
I own the company Moonlight Industries.
Okay.
Oh, really?
So we make low visibility.
Oh, really?
We specialize in right now we have a contract with SEAL Team 6 actually.
Okay.
We make their low visibility rigs.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay,
awesome.
cool. So the reason why we're here is because I don't know. I'm sure you're aware that just recently the ATF classified the FRTs, the force
Sure.
reset triggers,
Mhm.
as machine guns.
Hold it,
So
stop.
we are aware that you may have purchased some of these FRTs.
Okay.
So now we are having the whole agency.
One of the first things that really pisses me off about this isn't so much that you were stopped. It's the fact that, as she just said, the ATF made up their own regulation, effectively their own law, a change of already existing law and existing regulations that are out there. And now we have law enforcement that are being forced to go out and to interfere with people's lives and livelihoods because some agency that no one knows about, no one knows who runs, literally, no one in America knows who runs the ATF. They know nothing about the ATF. Never elected any of them. And look at how they're messing with people. God,
And
people should
mind you-
notice that.
this change was done with no congressional oversight.
Right. It was just one day.
Behind the scenes, no congressional oversight. I think they are required by law to have a 30-day comment period, public comment period, but that does not have to be publicized.
Sometimes depends on the regulation they're changing and the nature of the change. So it's not always. They don't always need it. They've had several times where they've changed existing regulations. Since the regulation already existed and they're only amending that, they don't need to go through public approval. Obviously, you've been through this, Steve. Go ahead.
Oh, well, no, I was going to, in regards to that, it's always amazed me because, first of all gun laws are an infringement, but
Yes.
the NFA still exists, right? I mean, what will or won't get your dog shot matters. And so, with the FRT, it's always been kind of a, is it a machine gun or not? I mean, look, there is a freaking shoestring that has a little piece of metal and is registered as part of the NFA registry for full auto. That is considered a machine gun because it's the same thing. It's a force reset.
Well,
What I don't get is why is it that these companies that come up with anything that's even remotely force reset don't just sell them in mass to a retailer who then just takes them to gun shows and does everything in cash, because those cops are there because they got a hold of somebody's customer list.
well, here's the whole thing behind the ATF is it was put out there as a tax, right?
I'm sorry, as what?
As a tax. Okay.
Well,
The
yeah.
1934, NFA, National Firearms Act,
Mm-hmm.
was put out there as a tax to regulate certain.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that because you got to remember that $200 back in 1934 was like $3,400 today. So
Exactly.
yeah, they kind of hid behind their taxing authority to regulate guns.
They did, but they did it illegally. They did it unconstitutionally. They did it in violation of Supreme Court precedent.
I mean, the Supreme Court precedent takes second seat to constitutional supremacy. I mean, so.
But here's where I'm getting at. Okay, the NFA violates the United States Constitution. Number one, okay, the federal government is not granted, in the main body of the Constitution, is not granted any authority to tax firearms. They are granted authority for taxation. But any direct taxes, which a tax on firearms would be a direct tax, must be apportioned across the many states. Okay. Now, people would argue that that was repealed by the 16th Amendment with the income tax.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that was repealed on that, as in terms of direct taxation, was income, not property. Laying taxes on property is a direct tax, which would be a violation of the direct tax clause of the United States Constitution. Okay, that's the first violation. Second violation would be in violation of the Second Amendment, because the tax would be an infringement on people's Second Amendment rights. The third is there is no authority anywhere in the Constitution that grants the federal government any authority to regulate firearms for private citizens. It only grants them authority to regulate firearms that the militia may use in defense of the country. That's it. Okay.
No doubt. Yep.
So the NFA, all the way around, no matter how you look at it, it's unconstitutional.
Oh, sure.
Well,
absolutely. But I mean, I guess ultimately the question we have to ask ourselves is, okay, so now what?
Well, that's it. Okay, it needs to be challenged. Okay, it needs to be challenged. Was it Plessy? I think it was a Plessy case. Congress tried to institute a carriage tax. Okay. Initially, the Supreme Court upheld that carriage tax. A later Supreme Court ruling, it upheld the carriage tax, saying it was not a direct tax. It was actually a tariff on carriages. A later ruling overruled that and said that taxing carriages was a direct tax. And as a direct tax, it must be apportioned among many states. So it held it in, but that carriage tax is being unconstitutional and now the authority of the federal government. This falls along the same lines.
Yeah, and I think it also kind of poses an interesting question. That is, can we repeal the Constitution? I mean, so could Congress actually, pass a amendment that repeals the second?
Yes.
I mean, I would argue no, not without destroying the quote unquote social contract that gave them the power to do that in the first place. In which case, we'd have to start from scratch.
The only way that they could, and somewhat legitimately do it, based upon what we have now, is they must call a convention of states, or they must pass an amendment by 2/3.
Right.
Or
Congress in both houses.
Or they can do what they just do now, ignore it.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it doesn't exist anyway.
Yeah. Well, let's
Because
Charlie.
we're always talking about what they can do, what they can't do, what's legal for them to do, what's not legal for them to do. They do whatever the hell they want to anyway. And then it takes us 7 to 12 years to get it turned around while they use our money to fight us to get our rights back. The rights that they took without our authorization.
Well, hang on, Charlie.
Yeah.
You've been quiet. It looks like you have something that's on your mind about this. Chime in a little bit.
So I'm going to come completely. Let me bring this up a little. I'm going to come completely out of left field with this. As we're sitting talking with someone who's making firearms on 3D printers, how do we know anyone's from the government? If you can, it was a big deal back in the, 80s or 90s, I guess it was, when you could go to Kinko's and you could print your own CD label. You could print your own flyers. You could print all of your own stuff. Well, with the advancement of everything, you could totally make some sort of a fake ID and be a bunch of people with your own little homemade leather, badge and a little leather thing and a necklace, and just start knocking on people's doors and telling them you're with the ATF. Who's going to know? Like we start to know each other in the community because we see these people doing this work and see their shows and whatever. But how do we know anyone's from the government? And I'll tell you exactly where this came from. I think it was in 2019. I had some friends of mine that were motorcyclers, and they're like, "Hey, dude, you should get your motorcycle license." I'm like, "Oh, dude, I don't know. Motorcycles seem a little dangerous." So I got a motorcycle permit. I had passed the test, I think 2 or 3 times. I may have failed the test because I thought I could pass, but I got a motorcycle permit. I ended up taking a safety course, learning how to ride a motorcycle, and in order to get the permit, I had to have a birth certificate. The birth certificate that I have, I don't know how, it's forever old. The once embossed of the what do you call it, a little stamp thing that people do?
Was it on
state embossment, state seal?
Yeah, no, not even that, dude. Who are those people that stamp everything? The notary, right? The notary stamp. Yeah, the notary stamp on the birth certificate I've had was not acceptable. So I had to call my sister up 1,000 miles away, and I'm like, "Hey, listen, can you go down to the town hall and get a new birth certificate for me?" And the birth certificate came to me. It cost me, $20. And then my sister mailed it to. It was going to cost me about $50 if I wanted to have the town mail it to me. But I got it for $20. My sister got it. She sent it to me. I went to the RMV. They looked at this piece of paper. They almost looked at it. And I'm like, I had to go through all this freaking hassle to get this little piece of paper to show you where I was born and to give you all the information that you already have on my driver's license. There's got to be a place that prints this paper where they buy it from. How come I can't buy it? How come I can't go have some little Chinese kid make a little notary stamp for me and start stamping my own stuff? So why do I have to spend all of this money to get some little piece of paper to show some government lady that doesn't even look at the paper? She just looks to see that it's there. She didn't look at any information. She didn't read the embossing on the notary. Why do I have to get all this crap just to drive a freaking motorcycle? And when I watched that video, I'm like, anybody could be making that stuff. Anybody could make that stuff at their house. You can order all this crap on Vistaprints or, you know, whatever, any of these sorts of things that do all this sort of stuff. People could be just making this crap and being like, hey, how do I know you're from the government? You have nothing other than a little lanyard that you can make at your house to say that you're from the government. I could probably do the same frigging thing.
Well, let me.
That's a great idea. I'm going to be right back.
Okay. And you bring up a lot of very interesting thoughts, and to apply that to what Steve is talking about and what we're talking about in terms of gun control, Second Amendment, and let me, now that Mike has put this up there, or was that you, Frank? Let me mention that we, of course, do not suggest that anyone
you could do that.
fraudulently create any documentation whatsoever. Obviously, you should go through the legal system. But the reason why we got the system, and the reason why you need to have that specific piece of paper with the specific seal on it, is the same reason why we need to register our guns, or that we need a license from the state. And the reason why they're so upset about ghost guns, and as they like to call them, or printing our own firearms. And the answer to that is, it's the government both getting paid. They need the money. Two, they need to justify all the workers they have, which is part of the pay, and the power of the government is having all the people, middle managers, who are just there to push around pieces of paper, regardless of what that paper says, because they don't really know. But the third thing I think is most important of all, because it creates layers of confusion and separation between you and accountable elected officials, and they have the superior position. They get to deny you. They get to tell you, no, you're not doing something that I want you to do. It's a matter of control. And it's the same thing that we see with the Second Amendment as well. It's a matter of control. Let me distance you from your rights, imposing the government officials in place as a blockade, a barrier to your rights, telling you what you can and can do to express your rights. And by the way, we're going to charge you to express your rights only in the approved manner. I think when we look at it in that way, because you bring up a great point, Charlie, that, well, you know, couldn't we do this in a more effective, more cost-efficient way? Absolutely we can. And that's what 3D printing is to an extent. It's a more efficient, more effective way for a lot of people to become gun owners, to express their Second Amendment rights. And the government is what's stopping us in that. I should also mention, just for the sticklers out there and for the fact checkers out there, yes, we are aware there are laws about having impersonation of an officer. It is illegal. No one should do that. And there are many fines and prison terms that could be enforced on anyone for trying to impersonate a member of the government or law enforcement official. But does that make sense, Charlie, how with your example and how it matches up with Steve and what we're talking about here?
I think it does. But the more I become a gun guy, the more I become a small L libertarian. Like I used to not know where I was politically, but I had certain feelings about things and attitudes about, whatnot. But the more I became a gun guy, the more I'm like, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to go from a small C conservative to a small L libertarian. The more I see the government get involved in all this nonsense and all this paperwork like that you have to go through, it's tiring, it's exhausting, it's ridiculous, and it's stupid. And of course, I'm not encouraging people to do any of this, because when I talk to my friends about this, they're like, yeah, dude, you can't like make your own notary and notarize your own things. You can't do that. Because I'm like, every time I've gone to the bank to have something notarized, they don't keep, I don't know if they keep track of it or they write anything down, or if they have to have some log.
They are supposed to have a log.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I've seen them fill this out one time. I've never seen anyone check to follow up on all of this. It's just, it seems more exhausting. And like I said, how do I, if somebody comes knocking on my door with whatever, with the, you know, with the black suits on, with the, you know, the white shirt and the thin black tie, I do, they could be in a ska band. I have no idea if they're from the government, you know?
Well, I can understand your fear. And Steve, let me ask you. So you heard my understanding of this, of the two situations. Do you think that sounds accurate to what I was talking about, or is there a little bit something different?
Oh no, I mean, there's lots. First of all, I mean, I guess when it comes to our rights and also our responsibilities,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we have to be ready and willing to exercise both. When it comes to like what Charlie was saying, I mean, you could have the most robust security system in the world, right? I mean, you see these movies where, you know, you've got these, you know, infrared lasers and pressure sensitive and there's temperature gauges so that if the temperature, you know, changes by more than 1 degree.
Mission Impossible, yeah.
But if you don't turn it on, right? If nobody checks it, right? If nobody's watching the cameras, if there's no system in place to actually keep things, you know, working the way they're supposed to be working, then it doesn't work. And that goes for security measures, right? Like notaries, and those little embossed seals on birth certificates. And it works for the Constitution the same way. So, yeah, I mean, we have to be engaged. And, you know, I look back at earlier generations, you know, the ones that saw the NFA pass or the GCA passed. And I look at, you know, my own generation and the generations that, you know, came immediately before and come immediately after. And, you know, I'd start to think, you know, what will those in the future say about us now? You know, I mean, this is probably one of the most important periods of time in human history. And if we just sit back and, you know, we're passive, then it's going to be written for us.
Well, even back with the adoption of the 14th Amendment, okay, which basically, in order to rejoin the Union, the southern states were forced to adopt it. Okay.
Right.
The 14th Amendment was never actually, without coercion, actually ratified by the states. Okay. In fact, many northern states tried to repeal their ratification of the 14th Amendment, and they weren't allowed to.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. These are things that we, the people, are the ones that are actually supposed to be holding our government accountable and holding our government in check. When we say that our system is about a system of checks and balances, it doesn't mean it's just a check and balances of the different departments of government. It means that it's the check and balances of the people on the government.
Yep. I mean, amen. Hallelujah.
I don't know. It's very frustrating, not only where we have gotten our government now, but where it's going. Because what we're hearing is that there's always this quest for more and more government, more intrusion in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
We hear that from the progressive socialist ideology, their mindset, that the answer to everything is, this is Thomas Sowell had a great quote about this from years ago. The answer is they never fail. They just need more time, more money, and more of your rights. And we see that in action as we're looking at it right now, whether it's the campuses, whether it's the ATF, the EPA, the FTC, FCC. Mike, we were talking about that, 2.5, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
We were talking about the new regulations, effectively new laws coming up from different agencies. And it's all because they don't expect us to remember. It's kind of like with Hochul, what we were talking about earlier tonight, even. They want you to forget. They stop talking about it. They'll put out the news in the very last page at the bottom of the article online, and they expect you to forget about this within 3 days, maybe within 3 months, to completely forget about it, forget to hold anyone accountable about it. And instead, they want you to focus on, well, Trump, did you hear what Stormy Daniels said? Who cares? Quite honestly, who cares what she said? I don't know. Porn actress was involved. And then it's the same thing with Clinton with the
and
blue dress.
actually, that kind of backfired.
Well, I understand it's backfiring, but the whole idea is that's supposed to be the distraction from what's actually really important, which is what we're talking about. Government taking away our rights and getting involved in our lives so much, which is
Well, it's just
completely
like-
unconstitutional.
Okay, and this is coming back to haunt the state of Georgia, or actually the Georgia prosecutor that's going after Trump for election interference. Come to find out that there are over 380,761 ballot images that are no longer available for some reason. They just came up missing.
Well, there goes our channel having any kind of exposure. We are dancing on the edge of suppression. Now we're done.
They washed it with bleach.
Yeah. And well, that was part of the fortification. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, Steve and Charlie. There's something called the fortification of the 2020 election. Now, a lot of people may not be familiar with it. It comes from a Newsweek article that came out after the election where there was a shadow cabal.
It was a Time magazine article.
Was it Time? I thought it was Newsweek.
Yeah, it was Time.
It was Time. Okay. Where there's a shadow cabal of individuals in news media, in politics, and private business, especially technology, that came together to basically funnel the public into one way of voting. And they published this article describing the entire process. And it was considered a shadow cabal. This is the fortification. And we see that happening now, where we're not even supposed to talk about. There have been cases in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin that have addressed literally what we're talking about. You can't mention it. Just like we're not supposed to mention the Second Amendment, the ATF. We're not supposed to talk about any of the experiences, anything that we've talked about tonight. Literally, these are all taboo subjects. It's very upsetting. Go ahead. What you got up here, Mike?
Yeah, this is actually from the Georgia Recorder. Okay, Georgia Oversight Panel ruminates on 2020 election hiccups as 2024 showdown looms. Okay.
When they say hiccup, do they mean something that courts have found unconstitutional, as they have in Michigan and in Pennsylvania and in several cases throughout the nation?
Well, here's what they've found. Okay. At least 3,075 ballots were double counted. There's at least 3,075 duplicate ballot images. Further down here, the complaint also says that more than 17,000 ballot images that were requested for inspection from 2020 election are missing.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I mean, this is I read that story and there was one thing that I did not see, and maybe it's located in this story. Okay, if there's 3,700 duplicate images that got mixed in, mistakes happen, I understand. And if they're mistakes, then the probability of those duplicates going one way or the other way should be pretty close to 50-50, right? I mean, there should be just as many Biden as there are Trumps, because the margin was really, really small. Right?
Theoretically.
Right.
Or were they all one way or the other?
They won't go into that.
No.
Will they?
No, not in the mainstream news media. And usually that's something that you'll find buried within the evidentiary of the trials themselves.
Right.
It's the media again fortifying some of the evidence that's there. You got to dig for it.
Well, unfortunately, now there's still no evidence, right, of,
Yeah.
of election interference or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and
let's-
they're still trying to say that Trump was trying to influence the election through his trying to get this resolved.
All right.
Right.
All right. Now, first of all, let's not forget. I mean, you talk about cover. Let's not forget that the governor of Georgia has been running cover for that since day one. And this
Right.
is supposed to be a guy who's of the same party, of the same ilk. He's been like putting up a huge shield the entire time. And nobody ever questions this guy as to, listen, if this is supposed to be the will of the people and you took an oath to uphold the Constitution and respect the will of the people, why are you acting as such a blockade? Listen, these are just legitimate questions we would like some answers to. Why is it so hard to just say, okay, let's have an open investigation and let the chips fall where they may? Why is he, been so reluctant to do so when this is a Republican governor of the state? And as far as election interference, does anybody remember when Trump first trounced Hillary? And
Wronged, I believe, is the correct verb.
yeah, and prior to the vote being certified, you had like this 1 hour long video put out by all of the Hollywood stars and starlets, and they were all begging and pleading that the Republicans
Electors do the right thing and cast their votes for
do
Hillary.
the right thing. You electors, we respect you. We love you. We need you to preserve our democracy. Can't you just change your vote? How come none of these sons of bitches have been brought up on election interference?
Because they're on the side.
Is that a rhetorical question?
Yeah.
Look, you got Trump, right? You have Trump, and he says, listen, at the time I'm president of the United States, I know 79 million people voted this way. I don't know for sure if 81 million people voted the other way.
I know for sure.
Yeah, I
But
know.
go on.
How is it possible that he's committing election interference when what he's doing is say, listen, it's not about me being the president, it's about making sure that the vote is respected. I need to ensure the fact that the will of the people who actually put us here is observed. Why is that not the argument rather than, well, I have to make sure that, that I won the election? No, it's not about I won the election. Is I need to make sure that the will of the people is respected by the election by making sure that it's open and true and legal.
Do
So
you,
how
you
do I
remember,
understand
you
why
remember when Trump asking Zelensky in Ukraine to find out what was going on with possible corruption was Trump interfering with his political opponent?
That's the Ukraine phone call, which was the basis of the second attempt at
First impeachment.
I thought that was the second one.
No, the second one came after he was out of office for January 6th.
Oh, right. They did it the other way. Okay. Sorry, I have it memorized in the other way around.
With all these with all of these charges against him, it's tough to keep him straight.
It really is. And there's going to be
all the
more.
impeachments. We have to number the impeachments, for God's sakes.
Oh yeah,
Well,
and there's going to be more.
We have a guy here. Lori was watching a show the other night. I forgot what show he was on. He's a guy was at January 6th. He labels himself as an independent journalist. He's a blogger. He's just out there blogging the events at January 6th. And at one point or another, he got involved. When they were pushing through one of the doors, he stood in the doorway with his hands up and tried to hold people back from going into the Capitol. And he's on video that they show from the Capitol Hill Police Department, from all the security videos inside there, from video that was taken from other people with their phones and everything else. This is a guy who's standing there trying to hold people back and saying, This is not the right thing to do. Please don't do this. Stop doing what you're doing. The crowd pushed him into the building by like 20 feet or so and pushed him out of their way as they just walked up their hallway. And standing right there is a bunch of Capitol Hill cops. And he's asking the Capitol Hill cops, why aren't you doing anything to prevent this? Why aren't you stopping this? And then he doesn't get an answer and he leaves. He's facing 5 to 7.
Well, again, that's about punishment. It's not about him. It's like with many of these issues that we're talking about today, we're seeing it's about the imaging, the messaging, the imaging that is being put out to the American people. Certain stories are downplayed and we're supposed to forget. Other ones we're supposed to remember, but specifically remember it from a very unique perspective that has a political benefit. And that's the problem. That's what we're seeing with J6. I mean, look at they put out 5 minutes of video versus 4,000 that we have seen released, which entirely changed the context of what everyone knew about January 6th. And there's another 36,000 hours of video that we still have yet to receive that we're supposed to get. We have, I don't know how many times every time there's a supposed mass shooting in America, we get a very specific, literally within 5 minutes, we get a slew of messages from all the mainstream news media with a very specific bias. And we're told about these thousands upon thousands of mass shootings that are happening in America that don't exist. That's not real. And why no one counts it that way, except when there's another mass shooting. And then we hear about all these hundreds of others events that have never happened because no one told us about it. It doesn't exist. It's all made up. It's about perception. And that perception's important because to answer, I think, Steve, you asked about how they're able to keep doing this. It's that they've been sold this idea that the only one, the existing, predominantly the existing members of Congress are the only ones who are trying to help you. They're the only ones who are trying to fix the problem. And you have to reelect them because anyone else will not solve the problem. But this is the exact same promise we have been hearing every 2 years for the last 40 years for these exact same people.
Well, right. And actually, I'm curious, Frank, you said he was looking at 5 to 7 years. Do you know what the charges were for? Was it for interference with an official false flag operation by the government? Because technically, by stopping people from coming in, I mean, if he stopped Ray Epps, then it's possible that he interfered with government operation.
I don't exactly know the specific charges that he was in, but I know a culmination thereof would, if convicted on all counts and sentenced to the maximums, would be between 5 and 7. I know your facetiousness, I understand, but I just laugh. I mean,
it's mad. It's mad.
It's not even a matter of there being any prosecutorial judgment being used.
There's not.
It's like every single opportunity they have to make somebody into another symbol of why you don't go against us, why you don't.
It's a boot stomping on a human face forever.
Yeah,
is what it is.
It's past the point. I was walking around with Laura the other day. We were in a store, and this creature comes walking through, 6 feet tall, long brown hair, boobs, a dingle dangle, and whatever the hell else, a shirt that says Free Palestine, a bumper sticker on the backpack that says, coexist with the rainbow flag and all the rest of the silly stuff. And I just looked at her and I was standing there. I didn't want to walk around, so I'm just sitting there reading the news on my phone. I looked at her, I said, listen, hon, don't take this personally, but do you mind if when we go home tonight, I pray for the meteor? Can we just pray for the friggin' meteor? already. Just
Right.
one fell swoop, get it done,
Get it over
hit
with.
it, be done with it. 4.5 billion years is plenty of time. Plenty of time, and we've obviously not gotten it right yet.
Yeah, look, I mean, you've got to be the meteor that you want to see in the world. You can sit around praying for it, or you can be that wrecking ball.
Well,
Yeah.
like I said, I just keep saying, I always keep looking behind me, and I'm like, just waiting for the call. just waiting for the call.
But no. So, I mean, I'm not sure what time you guys are going to cut loose, but Frank, I certainly appreciate the opportunity to talk about some of the things we've done in the past. I do want to mention some of the things we are looking forward to do in the future.
Yeah, we have to figure out what we can do and what I can put up on my YouTube channel, because the
well, nothing fun. I mean,
channel got me 2 strikes.
What you we do want to we want to get some of these guns in people's hands so they can actually shoot them. So I know like Jordan and Rob, Jordan Monroe of JSD and Rob Pincus of firearms et al. Do their makers match every year. We actually kind of the next thing on the calendar. I don't have a hard date yet. Once again, I've got to nail down the insurance, but we want to do a 3D print shoot. So just kind of invite everybody to, anybody and everybody to come on out and shoot a bunch of the stuff, and put some lead down range and bring some steel and just have some fun. So that will be coming up, and hopefully I'll have the opportunity to come on here and tell you all about it, so that your North Carolina peeps have the opportunity to get out this way and join us.
Well, hopefully the weekend following NRA, I can get out by the farm.
I've got a concealed carry fast that weekend.
Oh, all right. Well, the following, as soon as humanly possible.
But I guess the underlying thing to that is the solution to all of the problems that we've discussed tonight: to print more guns.
Yeah.
Well, when laws become unenforceable, it's what's the sense of having the law?
Right.
Be ungovernable.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie, have you fired a printed gun?
I have not fired a printed gun. I have tried working. I was actually at the Gun Rights Policy Conference in Dallas a couple years ago, and Pincus was there, and he's like, "Hey, I'm doing a build. If anyone wants to come by," I'm like, "I would love to check this out and see what's going on." And he may have had an extra frame and may have had some extra parts. And I may have worked on a lower, but I'm slow on the uptake on a lot of things. So I don't have any 3D printed ones. The one that I may have worked on with Mr. Pincus, I may have found some parts for it, and I may have put it together, and it might have worked. But I have a few others that I've put together with another friend that have not been so successful. So I've got some stuff that I'm not a handy guy. Let's put it that way. I failed auto shop in high school by bringing in a lawnmower and taking it out in a box 9 weeks later. So I'm not a handy guy with tools. So I need help. I need a lot of assistance with these things.
And so you just kind of painted a target on your back as our target market.
Yes.
One standard deviation to the left of mean is who we're looking for, or also known as the Army standard.
I know a guy who runs build classes. So
right. Well, so and we did talk about that on Meet the Pressers. Maybe it'll be coming back. I mean, we will see. With the Supreme Court granting cert in the Vanderstook, I think is the name of the case. I could be mistaken. It wouldn't be the first time. It won't be the last. If it goes our way and they affirm essentially the finding of the Fifth Circuit, then 80% will have a resurgence, a renaissance. And if it doesn't go our way, then we're standing ready to pick up the torch. If, like many things, it's kind of a mixed bag and it ends up somewhere in the middle, then we'll certainly be combing over the decision with a fine-tooth comb and finding ways to piss off people who should have better things to do than infringe on my rights. And I guess as an aside, two quick things. I see some of these comments. One, we were talking about school shootings earlier. There was a case where some guy shot himself. It was a suicide at like 2:00 in the morning on the property of a school that had been closed. I mean, when I say closed, I mean it no longer existed. It had no accreditation. There were no students, no teachers, no staff, no janitors, no nothing. It was a former school, but it was school property, and that went down as a school shooting. Michael McLean, it looks, asked full 3D printed gun or a few components. Apparently, Dell, guy knows what I'm talking about. So
what else would you need to pick up if you were going to 3D print one of the guns with your system? What components would you need to pick up in order to facilitate full function?
It depends on the gun, but I mean, it's just like a polymer 80, right? We'll take the Glock. The Glock is probably the best example. It's simple, right? There is an elegance to the simplicity of the Glock. All right, I know some people love them. I know some people hate them. But the fact is that they lend themselves to being recreated very, very easily. So you print the frame, right? The frame is the gun, right? Legally speaking, a firearm is a device designed to propel a projectile through the use of explosive force or the frame or receiver of any such device. When Glocks came out, people were looking at them, sideways because they were plastic guns. Well, they weren't plastic guns. They were metal guns, just like anything else, but they're plastic frames, right?
They were porcelain and cost more than you make in a month.
Right. You'd be surprised how much I make in a month. So it's the same thing with 3D printed guns, right? The frame is the part. It's the regulated part. You can go online and you can buy every part of an AR-15, every part of a Glock. You can have it shipped to your door, no questions asked, with the exception of the frame or the receiver. The frame or the receiver is the part that you have to go to a gun store. You got to fill out that 4473. You've got to, submit to a FBI background check, with some exceptions. And the part that you buy has to, of course, be manufactured by somebody that is a licensed 07 FFL, serializes and the part and records every transfer thereof. Unless, of course, you make it yourself, right? So what we do is we offer the part. We offer printers that are capable of making that part for you. And then you've got to buy all the other parts. So go online, go to the PSA website, right? They've got the daggers. They've got parts kits for daggers. Now, the one thing that you won't find is, and this is just a market failure. I offer them, but I'm not doing it, large scale yet. A lot of the lower parts kits are going to be designed still for polymer 80. The problem with that is twofold. One, the polymer 80 lower parts kits don't come with a locking block, so you have to get them somewhere else. The other part is that the polymer 80 kits generally will come with a pin for the trigger housing, right? Because the polymer 80 uses drop-in rails, so we'll give you a front pin for the front rail locking block system, and we'll give you a rear pin for the trigger housing, which also captures the drop-in rear rails. And of course, you've got your traditional lower parts kit for a polymer 80 will come with the trigger pin and the locking block pin. Of course, if you're doing a 3D printed gun, you need your own pin, and you can't just get a regular Glock one because the Glock ones are plastic. If you're using that pin for your trigger housing, for drop-in rails, you need to have something that's steel. So you won't get a locking block and you won't get a steel pin. So it's a little tough out there. You got to know what you're getting. You got to know what you're looking for. But you need a lower parts kit, and you need drop-in rails, and you need a slide, a complete slide upper for a Glock. For an AR-15, same thing, a lower parts kit, a buffer kit, and a complete upper.
No sound vest.
Yep. This is why people need to come out and see you in person and to see everything you're speaking about, because it makes sense. But I know there's got to be at least a few people who are listening to this and going, I'm not quite following that. But that's why you're here. That's why you have the events to come out.
Right.
Don't be afraid. Don't be put off by the jargon. Go in person.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, if you're not familiar with the jargon, I mean, if I'm talking about a trigger housing pin and you don't know what I'm talking about, your learning curve is going to be a lot more shallow, right, than somebody else. So you probably want to, you definitely don't want to just start printing immediately, because
It's a curve.
you got some work to do. There's nothing more frustrating, and I've gone through it. I mean, it has been a frustrating process since I began. I've been certified as a Glock armorer twice. I just most recently in 2023 got my advanced certification. Most people don't have that, and I know exactly what it's like to not have it, because for the first 40 years of my life, I didn't.
So it's not insurmountable to go from
Glocks are
new.
very, very simple. But if you don't know what you're talking about, then trying to just jump in. And one of the things that we need to do is, I mean, there's for Polymer 80, there was lots of great resources out there. But everything kind of, got put on hold because of this frame and receiver rule. And we saw an opportunity to get into 3D printing at that time, to pivot and to do that. But yeah, so no, I mean, there is, the onus is in part on us to provide that support, because just providing the hardware or just providing the software isn't going to cut it. You have to have that follow-on support to be able to get people across the finish line and to be able to do it safely. I mean, we have a responsibility to this industry, right, and to this to the movement, to make sure that there's a standard, right, of excellence as we bring more people into it, and that we're not sending people out there with unsafe guns. And just real quick to answer one of the questions that I see in the comments, I did do machining before I started 3D printing. I've when I started all of this, I got I took I think a 6 or an 8 month course in machining, basic machining, mills and lathes. Nothing too special. No CNC. I'd love to do some CNC, but I haven't done that yet. I've done obviously I've done my own 3D printing. I've done welding, and I've done machining.
Charlie, let me ask you something. Amongst your audience, do you see, because if we're listening to the way the media likes to spin it, there is a massive tsunami of individuals who are printing their own firearms. And this is, of course, the leading reason, if you're listening to the media, if you're listening to certain anti-2A advocates like Ted Lieu out of California, like Cheryl Jackson Lee out of Texas, then you would think that everyone is now printing their own firearms and they're out there using them in ways that they don't like. But I would believe, and perhaps you're familiar with this, that it's actually such a small number of people. That's one of the reasons why the FBI doesn't even count the number of so-called, quote, ghost guns that are involved in any crime in America, because it's literally a handful a year. But what have people been saying to you about this?
So I think I only know a handful of people that, like a small handful of people that have made their own, P80s. And I had the interest in doing it myself because I kind of like the thought of the government doesn't know about it, right? The state of Massachusetts doesn't know that I may or may not have one of these, which I dig. I got to tell you, as a guy that's not the handy guy, I was going to say this a couple minutes ago, Vaz. When you were talking about the people that are challenged. I'm like, dude, I'm right here. You don't have to talk about me, man. Like, right? Steve's listing off all these parts. I'm like, oh yeah, the blocking rail. I remember that. It looks just like the one that's in the. No, it's not the one that's in the front. That's the one in the back. And which one's the 3 millimeter? Which one's the 3 centimeter? The 4 centimeter? Dude, I have no idea.
Charlie, don't feel bad. Every week. That's me. I'm the politics guy. I know laws. I know politics. That's my realm of forte. And when we get into and I can fire a firearm, of course, but when we get into the
guns are that way.
That's what these two guys are for. Because I
Guns
sit
are
there
that
and I just
way.
go,
I'm Constitution.
I'm guns.
Nice.
Frank
I
is
love it,
all
man. I
guns.
love it.
Well, and I earlier had talked about that 501c3 nonprofit that I'd stood up when COVID hit and everything shut down. I had to kind of rethink my strategy with that. I had created a new class for it, and I was going to launch that. I ran into some other issues that unfortunately stymied my efforts. But we're now at a point where I've got my free gun zone out of the way. That's been kind of, the albatross around my neck for so long. I just wanted to, get out there and do it and get it done. That's done. We've got the 3D print shoot that, was kind of next on the list. But one of the other things I want to do is I've designed a class that I'm, at least tentatively, for lack of a better title, I'm calling inspection and maintenance. And the first class is going to be for Glock. Again, just due to one, the ubiquity, and two, the simplicity of the platform. And essentially the idea is you're going to learn how to clean your gun. You come in, we'll do a function check. So I know that you're not bringing me a broken Glock, so you can blame it on me. Once we do the function check, we'll do a detailed disassembly. Once it's disassembled, we can learn what every part is, Charlie, so that
I am educable.
we don't feel left out. While we have it apart, we'll learn what every part is, how they work together, right, and how they work in concert to make your gun work properly and to work safely. And while we have it apart, we'll run some of the critical components through like a sonic cleaner, and then we can put it back together. You'll have a perfectly clean gun, and you can go on about your way. So that will be coming hopefully soon. Conceptually, it's about a 2-hour class. It's nothing that's too in depth. It's almost like a Glock Armors class, but condensed, right? Instead of 8 hours, it's 2 hours. It's just kind of quick and to the point. So
sounds more fun than Madam Web or the
well, hopefully we can at the very least get Frank out this way. But hopefully, some of y'all, New Yorkers and Mass folks can make your way down this way and check it out.
How are we
There you
doing
go, Charlie.
with how are we doing back with parts? Because I remember we were having difficulties with channel one.
Well, like I said, I didn't want to get too deep into it, but Glock is shipping parts to non-LEO armors again.
Again, good.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a call.
There you go, Charlie.
Now I can't read it. No, I'm telling you, when I may have done this with a buddy of mine.
That's why I was holding this up before.
Yeah. I'm so here's, please laugh at my expense. I was at the Glock store in Nashville a couple years ago, and I picked up their version of an 80%. It was they called it the SS80, I believe. What's that?
The SS80.
I picked up an SS80, and I'm like, that's all. Like, I'm like Steve Martin in The Jerk. I'm like, this is all I need. All I need is this frame. This is what they're going to put a serial number on. Everything else I can buy afterwards. And I sat on that for a couple months, and then I ended up buying two 17 polymer 80s, but they didn't come with the rails, and they didn't come with the pins. And then I ended up making this one with Pincus in Dallas, and then JSD Supply. I may have. Yes, I may have. And then JSD Supply may have had a big sale, and I may have bought slides and uppers, and I'm like, okay, good. I have this stuff now. I may have to get a lower parts kit, and I've been collecting I may have been collecting all this stuff, and then I needed to get jigs, and so I got a polymer 80 jig for the 43 that I bought in Nashville, but the frames weren't exactly the same, right? Like there was a little bit longer beaver tail on the SS80, so I'm like, what am I gonna do? So I scoured the internet for SS80 jigs. Nobody has them. I've reached out to the Glock store. I actually interviewed Lenny McGill last week for one of the things I do, and I was talking to his guy, and I'm like, any chance you guys have a jig for a 43, because I could really use one. So I've been collecting all this stuff. I have it. Some of it goes together well. Some of it doesn't go together well. And I'm just like, I'm just going to hang out and wait. And, I've talked to a couple buddies, but haven't, I got together with one buddy to do the drilling, but didn't finish everything. So we can
Right.
and rack stuff.
When we were on Meet the Pressers, you were talking about, prepping and being prepared and having, supplies and all that stuff. And that's all well and good, but I think probably the most important thing that you can have to prepare yourself for any situation, right? Because you never know what's going to happen, right? The most important thing that you can have is knowledge, right? If you have knowledge, if you know how things work, if you can take nothing and make something from it, then it doesn't matter, what you've got in your pantry or in your fallout shelter or whatever the case may be, because you've got it all up here. And I think that is the most important thing about the homemakers movement, or privately made firearms, is that you learn. You will know the firearm thoroughly. You will rock, if you will, for those the Heinlein fans. And once you know it thoroughly, you can almost make anything out of a gun. I mean, you take one step closer to being MacGyver.
Well, I love this. We get the jerk, we got MacGyver. These are all timely references, aren't they?
Absolutely. By the way, I know someone was asking about, you heard some sirens in the background. No, I'm not getting swatted. No, they aren't coming for me this time yet. It's just a normal night in the Bronx where we will hear this another 4 more times before 1 a.m. So sorry about that. I usually catch it, but I didn't notice it that time. But no one's getting raided this time yet.
Yet. The night's not over.
No.
Well, you are on watch list, Michael.
I'm on every
It's like
watch list. Oh God, I've been on every watch list for over 20 years now while I've been doing this. So I don't think there's a federal agency that doesn't have an investigation they've done on me. It's crazy.
Oh boy.
So getting back to 7 minutes ago when you brought this up, Vaz, I don't think very much like bump stocks, I don't think there were a lot of people in the gun community that knew about these until somebody brought it out and they're like, ooh, ghost guns and ooh, bump stocks and bump stocks are machine guns and nobody should have a bump stock. Like, I remember talking to gun folks and they're like, dude, what's a bump stock? And you got to try to explain it to them. And they're like, oh, that's a novelty. And my concern with the government going after novelties, going after accessories, going after things that weren't firearms. Not that I want them going after firearms, of course, but when is somebody going to take someone out from, I don't know, like the DC sniper? Remember, they were shooting people from the back of the cars. So when is somebody going to go after having a scope because you're shooting at people long distances? Ooh,
Right.
I understand that complaint, but that's part of the process. It goes down. There's always, they just take away every single part until they take it all away. And this is their way to get around the fact that they'll never pass another gun ban like they did in the 80s. They're never going to get that again because it didn't work the first time. So they decided that instead of one going to Congress, where they're not going to get it passed again, and because a gun ban won't work, now they're just going after every single component without telling anyone until after it's kind of like the red flag laws. It's kind of like the New York Safe Act. You wake up in the morning and now you're a criminal. You weren't last night, but now that you woke up, now you're a criminal. Now they can come after you.
And
it's
and
really,
So next class will have to be how to grind class. Got it.
yeah, pretty much.
And like
more
like
stuff
Charlie
I don't know how to
was
do.
saying- like Charlie was saying, part of the problem with these things is that there's so much misinformation as far as the whole ghost gun thing that, like Charlie was saying, you have a lot of people in the community that don't understand. They don't understand how it's done, why it's done, or anything else like that. So when somebody introduces some more bullshit legislation to try and ban it, they don't really voice an opinion because, again, like you said, with the bump stock, well, it's just a novelty. It's just this. It's like, listen, it's one more degree you're raising the pot. That you go from comfortable to boil. If you're not standing in solidarity with even the smallest thing that the Second Amendment community is trying to do, then you're acquiescing to the larger constituency that wants to ban all of it.
Right.
Oh, well, we're only going to give a quarter of an inch. No, you're giving them 10 friggin' miles because you're never going to get that quarter inch back. That was one of the, we've heard the things, when it comes to suppressors. Well, I've never been a fan of them. Well, that statement alone killed the Hearing Protection Act.
Well, frankly, I don't think they were crazy about you either. What's your point?
No, but when we have statements like, well, we take the guns first and then we due process comes later. These are questions that, statements we should all have problems with, not only in the Second Amendment community, because it could be attributed to something else first. Well, we'll take your speech first and then deal with due process. We'll take your property first and then deal with due process. We'll take your life first and then we'll deal with due process.
Yeah, you have life insurance, right?
Right. Everything that they come after with us in the Second Amendment community, they use as a laboratory to see how far they can push the rest of our rights and how much they can take from anything else. If the Second Amendment community was staunch and steadfast from the beginning and they said, no, we're not paying a tax so we can buy the kind of guns that you're not supposed to be regulating. We're not going to, have to worry about a certificate so we can put a suppressor on our firearms so we don't blow our friggin' eardrums out. Maybe I want my barrel on my rifle to be a little shorter than Bob's over there. Maybe I want to be able to fire more than 2 rounds at a time, in succession. Maybe it's not for you to decide. If the people had to resolve back then, we wouldn't see so many things going on today like what we do now with well, you're going to go to jail because of what you said. What you said was hateful. What you said somebody was insulted by was somebody. You see what's his face up in Canada is doing?
Trudeau.
What Trudeau?
Fidel Castro Jr., his son's doing up there. They have this bullshit law up there about what you say on social media about how you can be prosecuted for hate speech, right? Now they're passing it where they can retroactively go back to the beginning of the internet and now charge you with something that you said before that was even a law. So before there were hate speech legislation, when you were still free to speak your mind, regardless of who you insulted or who you got pissed off, now they're going to go back and charge you for things you said 10 years ago.
And that is an outright violation of the Constitution because,
but again,
post facto laws are not.
But again, what do they care
about
the Constitution and how they can ignore it? Because it's going to take 10 to 12 years, and in Canada, longer to challenge it.
This is what you're talking about is very similar to when the millennials go back and watch Seinfeld and they're like, "This is offensive. How could this pass? We just accepted it as TV. It was comedy. It was funny. It was we knew it was a joke. We knew it wasn't serious. We knew that they really they didn't have bad feelings about Indians and the Puerto Rican Day Parade and all this other stuff. We knew it was a joke. We knew it wasn't serious. It was just TV. It was just entertainment. And you can change the channel and watch something else. You have the freedom to not watch things. You have the freedom to not do these things. You have that freedom. Like you don't have to watch cable. I got rid of my cable in 2011. I've had Netflix, and I'm pissed that it's over $15 now.
It'll be
Could you imagine if this guy was on TV today?
Archie Bunker. That's Archie Bunker.
Archie Bunker.
Yeah.
Nice.
But if I wasn't making 3D printers, I would want to make a documentary called Blazing Saddles rebooted. And it's not actually it's not actually a reboot of the movie. It would just be a documentary about how you couldn't make it again.
Well, no, because we've got so many regulations. We have indoctrination at
Right.
such a deep level nowadays. It affects everything. And in fact, that kind of brings me to nope, here it is. This comment from 2A for New York. The comment is, all of the great Second Amendment minds, why do we always find ourselves on defense? Now, and I want to answer it. Here's my answer to that. You guys can tell me what you think, but I think you'll see how this all connects. Our Second Amendment rights are a God-given right. It is a birthright. It's not given by the government. It is not regulated. Well, it's being regulated by the government, but as written and as intended, this is our birthright. Therefore, it's not something that we have to ask permission for, nor is it something that we have to assert, not in the United States. If you go to other countries, absolutely, you have to beg for it. You have to fight for it. You have to try and gain that right from a government that could take it at any moment, or a UN that could take it from you. But in the United States, it's absolute. We already have this right. So we don't have to be loud about it. The people who are trying to take it away from us, that are searching for different ways that they can micromanage our lives to pick apart piece by piece. You can't have a bump stock. You can't print your own. The government has to regulate it. You can only have this style of firearm only on these days. We're going to limit the number of bullets and ammo that you can have. They're attacking us, and they're very vocal about it because it is an absolute right. And because, and that's why it feels like we're always on defense, because we're not, but we always feel like we're on defense is because we don't have to fight. This isn't a fight that we necessarily should even be having.
Well,
We have the right. And as you just mentioned, Charlie, you have a right, they have a right to not be armed if they don't want to.
right.
But if I was, I bet you that woman in the Bronx that we just heard about yesterday, that was attacked, choked, she was raped, and that woman, I bet, would feel a little bit different about having a way to protect herself that would equalize the weight, the height, the differences that exist.
Well,
And this is the way I see it.
here's one of the reasons why we find ourselves on the defense all the time is because you will never get a politician to pass a law that would allow them to be held accountable, i.e., they will not pass a law that states if they violate the Constitution, they can be removed from office or they can be imprisoned, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The only way that we would actually be able to get on the offensive is if we get lower echelon governments to start enacting laws that would hold higher levels of government accountable.
Right?
I think what it is this. It's obviously the right to bear arms is not it's not a political topic, right? It's not one side or the other, but it is. And for the most part, the people that are gun folks want to be left alone. So when you say, hey, listen, you know what, we're gonna make it publicly, and for some of us that live in occupied territory, when you say to someone, say, hey, listen, you know what, there's the Gun Owners Action League is doing a rally or an event. You should come down to the State House and stand outside. And people are like, oh, well, the news will be there and people will see me, and I'm a closet gun owner. I don't want people to know that I have guns. So they end up not speaking out, or they end up saying, well, I pay my dues to this group, and they're going to do whatever they're going to do, and hopefully they'll do something. I'm not going to do anything more. I'm not going to write a letter. I'm not going to put a sign in my yard. And it's hard to get these people to do stuff because sometimes I think they just want to be left alone. They want to be left alone and say, listen, you know what, I'm okay. I'll be my own first responder. I'll, build a range in my backyard and shoot on my own property, and everything will be fine. So I think it's hard to get these people together. On the flip side, I've said a number of times that the people that want to carry don't want to go hunting. The people that want to go hunting don't want to carry, and nobody knows what's going on with the shotgunners. Not all gun owners are created equally. Like there are plenty of people that want to have a gun. One of my very good friends, who I have dinner with her a couple times a month usually, I said, hey, there's a local place that's doing a ladies class. You should sign up for it. And she's like, well, what do I want to do that for? I'm like, so you know how to use your gun. Well, you only went out and shot it that 1 or 2 times. Yeah, you should probably learn how to use it a little bit more. Oh, but I'm not going to carry. I'm not going to use my gun in self-defense. I'm not going to have a home invasion. It's not going to happen to me. I don't have to worry about it. And it's not everyone thinks the way that we do, right? So people don't want to carry. People don't, it's a hassle. It's a pain in the neck. What do even gun owners, well, how many guns do you have? And, what's the right answer to that? But, I have a gun for this, a gun for this, a gun for this, a gun for this. And you talk to some gun folks and like, well, I have one gun and, I don't shoot it very often. I bought 10 rounds. I'm pissed that boxes of ammo are 50 rounds and not 10 because my magazine only holds 10 rounds because they're not going to own it. So there are people that don't want to get involved and don't want to, they don't want to be as active or as into it as other people are. There are people that like beer, and I don't have a problem with beer drinkers. I'm at that age where beer makes me bloated. But people want to make their own beer. Dude, rock on. I don't see how it's different than wanting to make your own gun. Like, if you want to make your own good, make your own gun, dude. Keep it. Like, it's what do you want to do? Whatever. It's whatever makes you happy. Do what you want to makes you happy. And that's none of the rest of our business.
And I think to piggyback what everybody else has said.
Okay. So.
Well, I'd agree with everybody and disagree. Only insofar as to say that I think we are on offense. I mean, we have Bruin. We have Heller in 2008. We have McDonald in 2010. We've got Bruin in 2022. And we're at the point now where
Saitano, I think it was 2015.
Say again?
Saitano in 2015.
Yeah, that was only.
No.
that was the Massachusetts stun gun law, wasn't it?
Yes.
The stun gun case, yeah. Sure, right, and that certainly helps as well. I don't think that necessarily had as much. I mean, I think it certainly.
If you actually read the entire opinion on it, especially the part that says any arms what could be classified as bearable,
right,
are protected under the Second Amendment.
Right. However, the question becomes, to what extent does the government thus have the ability to limit that, right? Or how is the Second Amendment not, absolute, right? Because of course, that's what Scalia said in Heller.
It is absolute.
Well, no. I mean, Scalia very clearly stated in Heller that it wasn't. That the state was certainly had a compelling interest in limiting the ability to keep and bear arms in certain sensitive places, or particularly dangerous firearms, or particularly dangerous arms, et cetera, et cetera.
But
those not in common use.
Kind of walked all over that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, they were trying to essentially set the groundwork, and they weren't trying to overturn the entire apple cart all at once. I get that they were playing long ball. Didn't work out for Scalia, but it doesn't change the fact that here we are. Bruin built upon the foundation that was laid. And Bruin, I think, will ultimately have, hopefully far-reaching consequences, more so than the one you mentioned, Astutano, or however it's pronounced. The pillow got him. That's right. And yeah, I mean, stun guns are in common use. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, and Massachusetts gun laws are ridiculous.
Amen.
But I think now that we have the precedent, the test set forth in Bruin, I think everything comes under the microscope, and the microscope of essentially strict scrutiny. So I think we're in a whole new world. I think that unfortunately the wheels of justice turn slowly, especially when it's coming, when it's constitutional justice. The only time it seems to go fast is when they're trying to get Trump indicted before an election.
They turn slowly because government is always going to try to exceed its authority, number one.
100%
Number
of the time.
two, okay, they are going to resist in every manner to keep that authority.
Of course. And what greater authority than the ability to disarm the people?
Okay.
you do
Going
that
back
first.
to rifle scopes, Charlie, you'd mentioned that. When are they going to make those illegal? Well, it's already been done.
I bet it's in New York, if not California.
California Penal Code
What
468.
I say.
Sniper
Emphasis on
scope.
penal. Unbelievable. So yeah, I mean, they're going to go after, you know, I no offense to our well, let's face it, they're not tuning in tonight anyway, but no offense to the to the Jewish people, but there's this joke that I like to use when I talk about magazine restrictions. You know, high cap magazines, and I always have to make that sound and voice when I talk about them. But it's, you know, they don't want us to have 30-round magazines. They don't want us to have 15-round magazines, and then 10-round magazines, and 8-round magazines, and a 5-shot revolver. And, you know, we're going to need the Joe Biden double barrel. You know, I've told my wife, fire 2 blasts. Everywhere. Right. Exactly.
Have you heard the remix to that?
I think I have. Yeah. The one they made a song out of it. It's great. I love it.
No, I didn't. Oh,
It's,
You gotta
it's
look
just,
that up.
You got to look it up. Totally. But there's the joke, the Jewish joke is, and obviously I'm not anti-Semitic, right? I'm going to Yehuda Reamer's house for Shabbat.
Yes, you are.
You already
You've
said it's a
set
joke.
yourself up for it. Just
The
the
joke
joke
is
is,
this,
let's
right?
go.
The joke is, you know, a Jewish boy goes to his dad and says, "Dad, I've got a date on Friday night. I need $50." And the dad says, "$50? What do you need $40 for? I can't afford to give you $30. Here's $20 and bring me $10 and change." This is
I get it.
exactly what the gun owners are going to, the anti-gun folks are going to do. They're going after ARs and high cap magazines, and God forbid they end up, you know, we end up losing those. They're going to go after 10-round magazines, and then they're
Right.
going to go after 7-round magazines. And you shouldn't have to have a 1911, and you shouldn't have to have a 5-shot revolver, because
But-
when you talk to your anti-gun friends, they're like,
but-
if you can't shoot your guy with a single barrel shotgun, then, you know, or a double barrel shotgun, then you shouldn't have a gun.
But here's the thing, and I haven't done it yet. And so since I haven't done it, you know, I want to place that caveat on it first. But I have printed. There's essentially 4 parts of the magazine, right? There's the body, the follower, the spring, and the base plate. Maybe, you know, an extra part as well in some of them, but those are the 4 main parts, generally speaking. You can print everything but the spring. And like I said, I haven't done this yet, but I have been told it's been done, and it's on my short list of things to do. You can print a factory for your springs. So all you need is a roll of spring steel, and you can load it in. You can 3D print a factory, and you can make the spring.
okay.
They
That's
can't ban it.
It's not about, but again, it's not about the ban, and we know that because look at what happened with New York with Governor Hochul, our favorite person today. We
Right.
started the show with her. We're still talking about her. Who, when Bruin came out, and we had the decision from Bruin.
Oh yeah, she tried to
went
call
back.
everything a special place. A
Yeah, and
sensitive
she-
place.
Everywhere is special. Everywhere is a safety zone,
Sensitive location.
Right.
which is ridiculous. And it's obviously unconstitutional. It
Sure.
will get thrown out eventually. But the point isn't, and I think this is important for a lot of people who are watching. It isn't about us. We understand what our rights are. We understand the freedoms that are at risk. We're talking about why the Constitution is important. Why this is important is we need to have these conversations with the youth. That's why we're on social media. That's why we're able to share this with people. And I hope you do share this with younger people, because they don't know their rights. They don't know the limits of government to restrict
don't.
their rights. They don't know. They've never had these conversations because they're not supposed to. They've been told not to have a conversation, not to question the government, not to question authority, to just accept whatever they're told. And that many of them have never read the Constitution for themselves, or they've read an interpretation of the Constitution, not the document itself.
Have you seen some of the curriculum that's actually in quote unquote civics books out there? And
I've seen several.
oh my
copies.
God, it's painful.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of copies
is.
in a few states that have said, in particular about the Second Amendment, that it's a lawful. It's for specifically for hunting and recreation.
Or
was
for
in-
militia or whatever.
That was
it
in
is.
Illinois and California,
Yeah.
where
Did you
they've actually done
see
that.
last couple days ago that Thomas Massey got into it with Jerry the Penguin Nadler?
Yeah, I saw that.
Nadler reads, he says, I'm going to quote the Second Amendment. And he reads the entirety of the Second Amendment except the phrase of the people.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
missed
Massey,
Major edit.
the right of the people. That part he leaves out. He went right. He says the right of the militia.
Or I thought he just said the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Yeah, the right to keep bear arms but he leaves out the we the people part or the
Right.
people part. And then you wonder why, like you're saying, you got to focus on the youth. Why do you think they don't want to teach cursive? When I was a kid, we called it script.
Yep.
But they call it cursive. Why do you think they don't want to teach you cursive? Why do you think that they're trying to not outlaw, but like get rid of, literature that's spoken in early American dialect, which was English proper grammatical speak, because they don't want the kids to be able to pick up the Constitution and read what their rights are. They want to be able to revise what their rights are and how the teacher interpreted their rights. Oh, the Second Amendment is so we can have a military protect us. You don't need a gun. Your family doesn't need a gun. That's what it's for. Oh no. Oh yeah, the First Amendment. Yeah, you're allowed to say whatever we tell you you're allowed to say.
Except
Right.
you
It's
can't say hate speech.
Right. You can't yell fire in a theater unless there's a fire in a theater.
Right.
Exactly.
And we've had discussions on that.
And actually one of the interesting things about, well, especially, going back to the Second Amendment is, right. The militia, saying that it's strictly for the militia or that, it's for the government to have a military. And it's completely, I mean, you've got to be historically illiterate to believe that.
Well, yeah, you do.
Because if you don't know why we had a Bill of Rights, why that was a prerequisite for ratification of the Constitution by the Anti-Federalists, then I guess you could buy that line.
I got a quick question. Okay, for those that believe that the Second Amendment is only for the military, why the hell would the government need a specialized amendment to have a military?
Right. Well, and I mean, again, why would that be a prerequisite in the Bill of Rights? The Anti-Federalists were afraid of a central government, and they wanted to clearly list the rights that the government could not infringe on. So why would it be that the government has the right to regulate a militia?
Well, here's the question that you want to ask the anti-gunners when they ask you a question and they talk about the guns are for the military, and it's not. Tell them at the onset of the American Revolution, all of the men that went out to fight, where did they get their guns from?
The mantle.
Because they weren't issued by the federal government. They were their own friggin' guns. They were the guns owned by the citizens. The citizen gun is what won freedom in this country, not a gun that was given to them by a government entity, because there was no government entity to give them the gun for them to fight for their freedom. It was the people. It was we the people. The 3% of the people that stood up and said, enough of your bullshit tyranny, we're taking our freedom back. It was the people's guns. And since then, the government's got no right to the guns because it was our guns that gave birth to the government.
True.
And they got to get that shit in their friggin' right through their friggin' thick skulls. These people, the Jerry Nadler, the guy can't walk around Capitol Hill without thinking of shit in his own pants.
Has his pants.
How can you
pulled up
tell
his
they're so
damn
high up?
throat.
I mean, look, incontinence
They have
issue.
to be that high up. It's the only place that they can get the belt around them.
Oh my god!
That flying piece of crap, that guy.
Well,
Other than that, he has no strong feelings, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
No. Not at all.
Oh no, I'm not opinionated whatsoever.
Frank's not very outspoken at all.
I'm a dispassionate.
He's
individual.
really timid and quiet and never says a word.
Keeps to himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, he only has the best to say about many politicians. But I find it interesting.
He's Biden's biggest fan.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I make sure he always has a nice bottle of Vicks close so he can keep his nasal passages open for all the kids he wants to sniff.
Yeah. Well, before we go there, I think I got to say, by the way, Charlie, Steve, I'm very happy to see you both here joining with us and
Sorry.
sharing your thoughts about all of this. And more importantly, that to let people know we're not alone. I think that's also something that's very important that we share with everyone out there. There is a huge emphasis in mainstream media right now and in education, and definitely by politicians, to make you feel like you're isolated, you're ostracized, you're the only one who believes in the Second Amendment like we all do. It's such a lie. It's the reason why they don't want you to share or like or see any of these. You'll find 1,001 videos that'll tell you that there's, there are more mass shootings than there are people in America. But you will hear almost nothing and see almost nothing like this panel right now. And it's so great that we have guests on where we can talk about this and say, no, this is actually normal. This is the American system. This is what America was founded on. And we're not alone. And we all have different ages, different looks. We're in different parts of America. And we can all agree about this. And we can all talk about this. And you're not alone. God help you. You're not alone, no matter which part of America you are, no matter how far you believe the Second Amendment allows you to live your rights. Democrat, Republican, don't care. Independent, libertarian, doesn't matter. We all have these rights, and it's so important, and it's so great to have different people on with us to let people know you're not alone.
And we've always had a standing invitation. If you do not agree with our viewpoints, you are more than welcome to come on the show and present your side. We've always had that standing invitation. No matter which side of the aisle you're on, who you are, you're welcome on our show. And we'll have a open dialogue. That's the whole point, is to have and start conversations. It's the whole point of this live stream.
Yep.
And we've had no takers yet. We've had people jump into the comment section, leave their troll remarks from behind their keyboard like little cowardly peasants, but none of them have the balls to come on and actually formulate a debate because they can't. They are not arguing from a position of strength. Because when your position is to take people's rights away and our position is to expand upon those rights so more people have them, you're on the losing side of the argument. You're already on the losing side of the argument. It's not, gun owners, they look at us like we are some dangerous set of lunatics. And, well, number one, if you're not dangerous, you're useless. Everyone should know how to be dangerous. Okay, that's number one. Whether you're a lunatic, that's another thing. But gun owners understand that when you restrict the rights and you restrict the rights of people to protect themselves, you are taking away their ability to protect the rest of their rights. we are always looking to expand upon those rights, expand the base so more people could understand what freedom is and enjoy their freedom to express themselves, to go to the schools they want, to live where they want, to do the things that they want, to live life to the fullest. You can't do that if you're always going to worry about being repressed by your government. And the only way that they'll be able to do that to the people en masse is to take our firearms away from us. And we're not going to let that happen. It's just not going to happen. And they think that we're crazy for that. It's not a matter of crazy. It's not just our rights we're fighting for. It's yours as well. Because the day may come, you might find you need one of these. And if you've already gambled your rights away, in favor of a check from the government, who's the citizen and who's the subject?
And that's it. Okay. And I've brought this up before. Okay. The people are sovereign over any form of government in this country. Okay. Whether that be your local government, your state government, or the federal government, the people have the sovereignty over their government. They are the sovereign. Okay. States are sovereign over the federal government. That's what people keep forgetting. Everybody thinks that the federal government's the one with all the power and control. No, that's not the way it's supposed to be. That's never the way it was intended.
Yeah.
Well, it's coming up on 10:56. We've been at this for about 2 hours now. I think it's almost time that we call it into the stream. If you guys want to keep going, that's fine. But I am exhausted. I've got a long day ahead of me. I'm sure the guys are too. Bozich, do me a favor. Give everybody the information on where they can go to get the lowdown on what you're doing and how to get your products in.
I'm going to be. I've got to update my website. It's a little bit chaotic right now, but all my contact info is there. So you can still find me at beararms.com. The adjective, not the verb. It's at BAREARMS.com. And just shoot me an email. I still get mostly spam. So if it's a real email, I'll actually reply to you. You've also got my phone number, so you can shoot me a text as well.
Yeah, awesome.
Or give me a call. I mean, whatever. Yep, there we are. Yeah, I've got to clean it up a little bit. I think I'm going to get. I've been doing the online, the shopping cart sort of deal, and it's such a pain in the neck. I don't know if you ever run one, but I've recently opened a. When I started all this, I started with a local bank because I had already been operation choke pointed, left and right. I finally broke down and got a Bank of America, so I can now do Cash App and stuff like that. So I think I'm going to be switching to that. So you're going to see some changes to come to the website soon. But absolutely, definitely, 100% hit me up. And if you're interested in something, one of our products or some of our training, we'd be happy to help you out.
Awesome. And you and I are gonna be getting together soon to do some test firing and see how durable some of that.
Yes, I've been working on the FGC9. It is definitely a different animal. It is. If you're not familiar with the FGC9 is, go and Google it. But there's literally no commercial counterpart. So you're building pretty much from scratch. And with 3D printed parts and rudimentary parts, it's a challenge. But I've just about got it there. So yeah, we'll be good to go.
Spaces as soon as it's ready to go.
I still have all my fingers. So
as far as durability, Pincus said that he got 1,000 rounds out of that frame.
Out of his what? Out of his FGC9?
Out of that handgun frame that he.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that he just blew one up. I mean. And 1,000's good. I mean, the minimum standard is that you get more rounds out of it than it takes to print another one.
We have to make up the gun from In the Line of Fire that Malkovich had.
Yeah.
And see if that thing actually will work.
Oh, we could absolutely make that work.
Absolutely.
It would have to be a little bit different, but.
Right. Jolly, give us a lowdown on the show, brother.
All right. So I have a YouTube channel where I interview people in the car as we drive around the country and talk about gun stuff. You can find it on writingshotgunwithcharlie.com. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can listen to the show in podcast form. I also repurpose shows for Armed Lifestyle magazine. And the column I write for that is called Writing Shotgun with Charlie, where I go back and revisit some previous guests, and I do a new interview with them. You can find the show on AmmoLand, and I also write articles for News 2A. And that's a website out of New Jersey that they asked me to write some articles. So I wrote some stuff about Massachusetts and a couple of other things here and there. So I know I need to write a little bit more often. But yeah, that's what Writing Shotgun with Charlie is. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I really appreciate this.
Charlie, are you going to be out in Dallas next week?
I am. Yes.
Excellent.
I am.
Write down booth 9260.
No, you're gonna have to text it to me, bud.
All right.
Who is it for?
Yeah, because as of next week, if those of you don't know, next week is the first LaPierre-less NRA annual meeting, and we're sure it's going to be a barn burner of sorts. I will be out there doing my usual meet and greet, running the floor, doing my interviews, trying to figure out what the hell's going on in the industry. And I'm also going to be over in the 5150 booth with Optimum Parts Company, helping rep their new Osiris rifle, which last summer I had the opportunity to take out over, I think, 1,100 yards. Which it's this gun is going to be going out for a King of the 2 miles. Some extraordinary firearms being brought out by 5150, and I'm going to be in their booth repping with them. We're going to have a lot of fun. We understand we might also be having a couple of big name people stopping by the booth. So if you buy, you might score an interview with somebody that, or at least a picture with somebody that you would be good for PR purposes. But with that, I'm going to say goodnight to you guys. Marshall, Vass, bring us out.
All right. Well, folks, we always appreciate whenever you take the time to listen to us as we talk about the issues that are affecting everyone across this nation and, of course, around the world as well, because we lead by the example. Our freedom is their desire. This is the goal they're trying to reach. And we thank you for joining us every week, every Friday at 9 p.m. for the Liberty First Foundation and with No Soundbites Allowed to speak with you and hear your input about all of these issues. It's not just about the Second Amendment, although that's a big issue we talk about every week. It's about the Constitution. It's about your rights and your freedoms, making sure that you will maintain them. And the only way we can do that is when we speak up, when we have our voices heard. You have to go out and vote, but you also have to be informed. That's why we're here. And we hope that you'll come back every Friday at 9 p.m. to check us out, to look at all of the channels and everyone who's been here today, to listen to them about the issues, the aspects of the issues that you find important, because you matter. Your vote matters. And if you think they don't, what do you think they're spending billions upon billions of dollars for every election year? Because you do matter, and they know it. But Mike Marshall, go right ahead.
So, folks, we're here. We do appreciate everybody that's in the chat. We appreciate Charlie and Steve coming on the show tonight. We're always open to having guests onto our show. If you want to be on, just let us know. You can let us know through our website, or you can get a hold of either Frank or I on YouTube or on Facebook or any other of social media platforms that are out there. You can find us on our website at l1f.us. And there you can find various articles that we've written and stuff that we have done over the years. Okay. Also, while you're there, you can actually stop in and join through our membership drive promotion. Okay. And right there, you can fill out a simple form, and $15 a year will help us get the word out to a wider audience. The whole thing is we are about educating people. And the more that we can reach, more people we can reach, more people we can educate about what their rights are. And if you don't want to become a member of the Liberty First Foundation, great, so be it. Do us another favor. Help us get the word out by liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing to our show. Find out when we're on, okay? Join in on the chat. That all helps us to get the word out, to get the message out that we are a constitutional republic. And that is a very important thing. Our government is accountable to the Constitution, not to the whims that they wish to pass. Okay. Marbury versus Madison. Any law that is repugnant to the Constitution is null and void. Period. Okay. That's what we need to remember. Until we, the people, start holding our government accountable, they're going to keep encroaching upon our rights. We're here every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. We would love to have you in the audience. We are, like I said, we're here every week. If you want to be on the show, just let us know. Thank you, everybody.
All right. And that's it. We're signing off. Everybody have a good night. Be safe. Shoot straight. We love you.